morning. Welcome to the Chicago Center for Psychoanalysis and our spring open house. This morning we're going to focus on our fellowship program and our Psychoanalytic Psychotherapy Program. The latter used to be called informally the 2-year program, but over the years it's extended into 3 years and gotten and more maybe. And it's because there's been a request for it from multiple people, and because in psychoanalysis we have more material than we have time. And that's one of the aspects of this that drew me to this work. There's so much to learn that we're never going to get to the bottom of it. We're never going to get through all the journals, papers, books, podcasts, YouTube presentations. And we have to choose and keep choosing what we're going to listen to, what we're going to learn, what we're going to try to build on. And, we keep learning. We keep seeing how these practitioners and theorists, where they dovetail and where they don't. And we see then for ourselves, we see what makes sense to us and what doesn't, what we agree with and what we don't. And this is how we create ourselves as psychoanalysts, as individual therapists. It's based on our own histories, our own learning, our own mentors, our own teachers. All our experiences come together for this group of singular people who are all doing the same thing, but very differently. This is where it's an art much more than a science. And that's the opportunity in this end of the mental health field, the opportunity to keep learning in this very specific, personal way. And it's the process of psychoanalysis itself where we slowly become exposed to our own unconscious, learning what we don't know about ourselves. And it never empties. There's always more we don't know. When I started here, I didn't know how much I didn't know, and it was terribly intimidating. But CCP was created as a way to offer an education to clinicians throughout their careers, from internship to retirement. Some people here say cradle to grave, but I don't know, it's starting to sound a little gruesome. Pick whichever phrase you like. But basically, we're not supposed to stop learning. The goal for CCP is to provide enough of a range of theories so clinicians can create themselves as psychoanalysts. No one's going to say you have to be a relationalist, interpersonalist, Bionian, Lacanian, Kleinian. We want you to have a good understanding of them and to be able to follow what piques your interest, what feels right at the time. And what feels right is going to change over the years. We change and we keep changing. It's this process of becoming ourselves. And there's always more to learn. And I don't remember who said this. Someone, I think from a class years ago, but suggested, and it's in a paper that I do not remember, that said we should keep a time capsule of like the 10 books and papers that really influence our work. And always have them in the back of our minds. And we should also keep the time capsule open to be edited, ready to change it as we go along, because we're going to change as we keep going. So today, this is just an introduction to our programs, and we're going to talk to some CCP folks who've been here for a long time, some people who are just starting out. We're going to hear from a recent graduate, Lindsey Drummond, and then from Inbar Greenfield Terry, who's the head of our fellowship program. And right now we're going to hear from Adina Keesum, who's the head of our Psychoanalytic Psychotherapy Program. Thank you all for coming. Adina?
Thank you all for coming. And I'm so pleased to see to start with some of the elders. I want to thank the faculty members that are spread in between the squares for making the time and join us. And in some ways, it shows the respect that our faculty has to welcome you all. I know some of you, I met with some of you, but I basically don't know whether you are here to be interested in the fellowship or the psychotherapy. And it doesn't matter, because we hope that once you join us as a fellow, you will continue to join us in the psychotherapy program and as a member, primarily as a member of the community. Often when we have this spring open house, we kind of go around and gather questions and hear stories about who you are and tell you about who we are. Today we are going to do something different. One of the requirements of the psychotherapy program is, in order to get a certificate recognizing that indeed you completed the requirement, is to come up with a project that is of meaning to you. We do not define what it is. It's up to you. Today, we will have a mixed open house and graduation ceremony, because Lindsey, who will be the centerpiece of our open house. And the reason is that she came up with the idea and the desire to write about her experiences at CCP. And Lindsey, Lindsey, I'm not saying your last name because I'm afraid I won't say it correctly. How would you say it?
Drummond, but you can say it however you'd like.
No, now everyone heard, and I just said Lindsey. So Lindsey is graduating today from the psychotherapy program, and will present her paper, which will tell you and tell us about her experiences at CCP as a fellow and as a member of the community, to start with, more important than any other position, but also as a fellow, and also her experience of the psychotherapy program. So let me tell you a little bit about Lindsey. After the presentation, you may not have any question because it will be so clear and exciting. And you'll just go and apply for this program or another and have no question. But should you have questions, we will have it after Lindsey's presentation. If we have time, I will introduce some of the faculties that is here, and we'll get to know you through your questions. And again, thank you for coming, and let me tell you about Lindsey. So I'm going to read. So Lindsey, with this beautiful last name that I won't say again, her degree is LCPC. She practices psychoanalytic psychotherapy in her private practice in downtown Chicago. Lindsey completed her graduate training at Northwestern University in the Family Institute and has since participated in fellowship program, as said, and completed the Psychoanalytic Psychotherapy Program. Hopefully, Lindsey, today, after your presentation, this will be a completion. But she has completed. Her graduation project focuses on promoting psychoanalytic training and community engagement among students and clinicians, including in the development of an outreach committee, a CCP outreach committee that Lindsey is chairing. And I'm saying it and will create. I'm saying it because it's already here embedded, is that we invite our fellows, our students, to get involved in leadership in the organization. And Lindsey is taking it upon herself and is already chairing a committee, an outreach committee. So Lindsey, please.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here to speak about my experience and what these years with this organization and beginning to think analytically have meant to me. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. Okay. So when I chose to enter the field, I had no real awareness of theoretical approaches or psychoanalysis. I just had a great curiosity and interest about people, with all these motivations of helping and understanding, but it was all mixed together. I hadn't thought so much about some of these questions, like what really is psychotherapy? How does talking heal? What do symptoms really mean? And why do people want to change but often resist it? And what is my position as a psychotherapist? And maybe most importantly, what is it inside of me that feels a pull towards this work? Engaging in a psychoanalytic way of thinking and learning has given these questions a shape and a real pathway for me. Are they all answered? No. But the way I think about them has developed, and how I continue to answer them has become, these guiding principles in how I work. So the first time that I even heard about psychoanalysis was in an introductory class where the professor assigned us a Freud case study known as the Rat Man. For those of you who are unfamiliar, I have a quote on the side. The Rat Man is about a man who was overcome with obsessive thoughts about something terrible happening to his loved ones, especially involving this specific fear of torture involving rats. In response to that, he developed these intricate and intensive compulsions to defend against those fears. It's a long paper with strange writing, and I didn't understand much of anything about it, but I was fascinated and exhausted reading it. Words and phrases like omnipotence and doing and undoing, rage and repression, the superego, the unconscious, ideas like ambivalence, to have conflicting, loving, and aggressive impulses towards the same person, or compulsion, not as a random act, but as an attempted solution. Not quite what I was hearing in my other classes, which is not to say that there was no utility in the counseling skills or behavioral approaches, but that I recognize that Freud's efforts to come to know this man's suffering was a different project, one that involved listening, psychic exploration, and the withstanding of this anger and fear in the room. Much of what I was being taught about other approaches and models seemed to have a focus on symptom relief in the present moment, and structured, sometimes manualized ways of working. But here started to emerge a world where treatment could be an exploration into these powerful words, and where these aspects of humans that are easily shamed or feared or ignored could be looked at with some interest and curiosity. So the class ended, but I was curious. I found CCP and applied for the graduate fellowship program. The fellowship program is a way to begin thinking about psychoanalysis and to see if there is something that could be of interest to you. There are monthly meetings with a small group and a mentor. And for me, the group aspect provided a relatability with other clinicians in what we were starting to notice in sessions, different challenges at our workplaces, and all just seeing if we were drawn to this thing or what we thought was psychoanalysis. being paired with a mentor was really important for me. I had a place where I could bring challenging moments and hear about how to conceptualize cases, hear a different way of thinking, and as well as beginning to just talk about maybe why I was even there and my interest in psychotherapy. You can see some of the information on this slide about the program. I then chose to continue with the 2-year psychoanalytic psychotherapy program. After being out of school and working full time, there was and continues to be just so much happening clinically in the room, in myself, and what I was thinking about, that I really felt a need to have more structure to support that. In some ways, the fellowship had been a stepping into the waters and seeing if it was compelling. And the analytic program, the 2-year program, represented more of a commitment to building this in myself. This time, there are weekly seminars that alternate between a theoretical class and a clinical case conference group. This happens alongside weekly meetings with a CCP member. And the curriculum really moves through the psychoanalytic theory with different schools of thought and brought me right back to Freud's writing, but not Ratman this time. But there were classes on developmental perspectives, classes on dreams and working more creatively, and a class on matters of shame and mourning, and looking at how our patients' histories are shaped by these things, as well as our own approaches. For me, it was not a matter of having to understand all this material that was coming my way, but noticing how it would spill into connecting it to a session I had that week or somewhere I was stuck with a patient, and something really taking shape inside of me that became a place to reach to during sessions or when I was confronted with something. I was also in consultation groups where we presented sessions and sometimes just talked about questions about how to work, like how to handle cancellations or how to start and end sessions, and how to manage the demands of this work. To have different minds turning over what you present and thinking and listening, it was really invaluable to be able to get outside of my own, maybe boundaries in my head about how things were supposed to be, and be able to have it be this alive concept being discussed with others. Likewise, this weekly mentorship really allowed for a different experience than supervision at my workplace, where I began to talk more about what the ethics of therapy were, my own values doing the work, and slowly but surely starting to think about some of my own ideas that would come to life in the mentorship. And so in balancing all of this with life, at times it was demanding, but now on the other side, I'm noticing that what I've emerged with is a framework and a language that I believe has been quite protective against burnout, feelings of being lost. When there were periods where I did lose interest in the work or wasn't feeling so alive in it, these relationships I developed and the framework provided this structure to lean on until I worked through whatever was happening for me. And so the last aspect that I want to touch on, which is perhaps the most meaningful to me, is the relationships and the influences on me, which I've mentioned. But many of them are here today, with Inbar having led my first fellowship group, Adina leading my 2-year group initially, followed by Laurel Green, who has now become an individual consultant. And I am in year 4, still meeting with my original fellowship mentor, Peter Shabad, who has just been so significant to me. And so throughout meeting friends, clinicians, and building this community that is not so dependent on just where you work has been a great value. And, like we tell our patients, knowing that you have a few places to bring in moments of despair, frustration, excitement, confusion is a part of what allows me to do this work with some openness and courage. So this is my invitation and my encouragement to consider what it could be like for you to enter into one of these programs and see what takes shape in you and your work and the connections you build. And realizing, as Adina often says, this is a lifelong place to be with yourself, your patients, and in some ways, I think without this, I think it would have been immensely challenging to reach the depth that I've been able to experience over the last few years. So thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you, Lindsey. I'd like to open the floor to questions, comments, concerns about anything. Lindsey's experience, the fellowship program, the Psychoanalytic Psychotherapy Program, or CCP in general, or even CCP's history. We have enough people here who've been there almost since the beginning, if not the beginning. So, yeah, take a moment. And we have a hand up. All right, thank you, Hannah.
Hi, Lindsey. Thank you for your presentation. One thing that I appreciated was that you kind of talked about how your sense of thinking is developed through the program. I really struggled to kind of develop a sense of myself as a clinician and find a way to think. So I wondered if you could speak any more to how that shifted for you through the experience, if it's not too big of a question.
Mm-hmm. I can try. I think part of it was in the beginning, I'm not sure how much I was thinking. Yeah, I was so focused on helping, and still to this day, I'm so eager to help that a lot of what that meant and how I was doing it wasn't what I was considering. And maybe a good way to think about it is I think I used to just be reacting very instinctively to what was in front of me. And what has changed now is a certain patience that's growing and allowing myself to sit back and have these different, voices in my head of not just theorists, but some of my teachers, and be able to find something that feels like me amongst these ideas. And I think how that has translated is, maybe not just rushing into it, pulled by whatever the patient is presenting, but being able to find a sense of my own language to understand it, and then being able to hold it enough to think about how to use it. And so the process has really slowed down for me, if that is helpful.
Thank you, Lindsey. What other questions or thoughts might anyone have?
I was curious what the
Yep.
time commitment would be like in both of the different programs. So the fellowship versus the graduate training program, especially for students that are in a doctorate degree right now, moving on to dissertation or internship.
All right. Who's got this covered?
I can. Oh,
Thank
Inbound, you go.
Well, I'll just say that the fellowship program is the commitment is really a year, and over a year, it's about 9 hours of one-on-one individual meetings, 9 hours of group, so basically monthly, and joining us to our lecture series, which are about 8 Fridays evening that you can attend either in person or virtual. However, I'll add that I think people can join the fellowship definitely if they're in a graduate program. However, ideally, I think it's helpful if you start seeing patients well in the program. You just get much more out of it. So I don't know if in your program you're already seeing patients or will be seeing patients. So that's another component to think about, I would say.
Let me add and tell you about the psychotherapy program, even if it's not for you right now, Amala. Do I say your name correctly? But I'll just use Amala's question to respond to it in terms of commitment in the psychotherapy program. In the psychotherapy program, actually, I wish it was more demanding, but it's not very demanding, meaning in terms of hours. It's basically 3 hours a week, and it goes as follows. Each week you have a theory class for 2 hours, often that meet on Sundays, most classes, some are on Mondays. And the following week, the student will be meeting in small group in a clinical seminar of 2 hours. In addition, you will have your once a week meeting with your consultant. We don't call it supervision because we don't supervise people's work. We share our knowledge and our take on what is presented to us, so we call it consultation. So overall, it's 3 hours a week. But the fact that the theory class is happening every 2 weeks, it gives plenty of time for the student to do the readings that primarily are assigned in this theory class. We hold the classes on Sundays and Mondays primarily to allow not to hijack all your Sundays. So you have only 2 Sundays a month, more or less, that you are, and it's all on Zoom. And then you meet, most classes are a small group, clinical seminars are held on Mondays. Sometimes we have one that is on Sunday, but overall so you have twice a month Sunday, twice a month Mondays. And then your individual supervision is between you and your consultant and so on. So overall, 3 hours of commitment plus readings in your spare time.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we have a lot of hands going up.
Cool.
Calvin, you've been waiting the longest. Jump in.
Yeah, I had a similar kind of line of inquiry as Amala did. Maybe less so in terms of the time commitment, but as someone who's also in graduate program currently with practicums and dissertation, et cetera, ad nauseum on, the horizon, I'm very eager about this opportunity. I am balancing that eagerness with the hesitation that I might not invest as much as I could in the fellowship, for example, in the further trainings and programs as I would if I were, to be coming out of it, having had a lot of these things in my rearview mirror. But I also know that my benefit to my clients that I'll be seeing in my training will be better, and my comfort with my sort of identity will also be improved, as Lindsey was saying, as soon as I start. So I think maybe just some more kind of that line of questioning as to when would be the appropriate time for me to balance those kind of considerations.
I could also speak to that more. You know, I probably could take the classes in the 2-year program many times and absorb something differently. Because when working full time and attending, you're right, it's a lot to take in. And so I think in the beginning, I was trying to read every paper, focus so much for everything, and that was just not realistic. And I found that in some ways, trusting your unconscious, trusting your mind for things to surface as you're hearing them and to get something out of that in the time and maybe not so much pressure to have to make the most of it was helpful for me. But maybe they can speak to when is the best time.
Calvin, it's Adina. I believe that where you are, graduate student, and you, as Inbar said, you do see people, and the commitment in the fellowship program is much less. It's than the psychotherapy. I think I'm a great believer that when we do a lot, we do things well. And I think that basically the once a month small group that is in the fellowship program and the once a month meeting with the people like myself, Zach, Inbar, and others that are here is enriching and not terribly demanding. I think it can be a very nice addition to a respite place and creative place to start with. And then you'll join, when you're done, you'll join the psychotherapy and then the psychoanalytic training, and then you'll be the president of the board. That's all. That's all what we want. So I think fellowship can work. Inbar, what do you think?
I actually wanted to say something about the creation of the fellowship program, how it started. The elders that thought this program to life, it came really to life because they realized a lot of us, when we start in the field, we don't really have good supervision or consultation wherever our field placements are really in the beginning. And the fellowship was created to give you guys something that of value and quality, knowing that we're not sure what people are getting in wherever they are in their placements. So if you think of it, the fellowship is really, I think, a supportive program. I mean, in terms of the work, other than showing up for those few hours, maybe 2 hours a month, you just have to show up and to speak about what's on your mind, what's bothering you, what do you need help with. So I think the fellowship is really probably the lowest in terms of the investment and a lot of support. So if that's helpful, I wanted you to know kind of how this program became to be.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Invar, you're also talking about just the rules for therapy in the first place. Show up and talk. Jennifer, you are next. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm actually interested in both the fellowship and the ongoing program, and I'm thinking about actually doing them both. But I'm curious about how you think about pairing students, whatever you want to call them, applicants, with supervisors or consultants. If it is based on, I would imagine, sort of a combination of sort of theoretical leaning and personality, or maybe it's not. I don't know. If you could say a little bit about how you think about that and sort of what how the applicant should be thinking about, if we do have a say in who we get paired with, like how we should be thinking about it. Anything you can say about that would be helpful. Thank you.
Well, Jennifer, we're supposed to meet, right? So that's what the meeting will be for. So that's my question to you about that. And overall, I'll just say in terms of the fellowship, and Adina can talk about her, because it's a much more serious pairing. In the fellowship, you'll be paired with both the group leader and the individual for a month meeting. I speak to all the fellows that I'm admitting into the program and want to hear about more specifically if they have ideas of what kind of a mentorship they're looking for. And I would do my best to try and make good matches. That's all I can say at this point about that.
That's super helpful. Exactly the information I needed. Thank you.
Let me tell you about the process in the psychotherapy, and we have been in touch. I think we have not met, but we were supposed to meet or will be meeting. We were in touch. But thank you for your questions, and we don't need to talk about, I mean, it's for other people information. The process when someone is applying to the psychotherapy program, as some of you know, I meet with each of you for at least an hour, primarily an hour, to get to know you and to tell you about the program and to answer your questions and so on. But of course, and I always say to the people, it's not an interview, it's conversation, because in these two programs, not like in the candidate program, we invite people. The philosophy is that if you want to learn and to study with us, we welcome you to study. I always tell the story that I had a teacher and a mentor that told me, Adina, if 1,000 years ago, if someone wants to learn, we must let them learn. What they do with it, it's up to them. I always tell the story so people feel that they are welcome. And I do my own kind of due diligence to make sure that whoever is coming in is not disruptive, etc., etc. But overall, I'm always so impressed by all of you guys that I've met about how earnest and eager and interested you are. So this conversation and your personal statement and a bit of your resume, but primarily your voice as conveying the conversations that we have and in your personal statement of interest. I tend to say, I take you all in and I dream who will be good for you among our very, very generous faculty, many of them are here, that are willing to share their knowledge and experience and transfer their knowledge through these meetings. And I must say that in all these years, since Nancy Berk and myself created this program, I don't know, 17 years ago, whenever we did, I think that I learned about dissatisfaction of matching maybe twice, often too late, so I could not make a change or help, because people told me that when I met at the end of the year again. But so usually the goodwill of our faculty, and actually we all do it primarily pro bono, and there is such a goodwill among our faculty and consultant. I feel very lucky, and as a result, I would say 99% worked, and maybe more even. Should there be a problem, and problems can be, your consultant is available to discuss, because just like in therapy, if you have difficulties, we expect you to struggle, not just to say that, as you all know. And if the struggle did not bear fruit, often as parallel to therapy, you all are welcome to reach out, and I often am very proud to say it's a boutique program. We really try to match. So whether you have a say, actually you don't. You have, because even if you are, let's say, relational tendency and so on, we actually are interested to expose you to good people, not necessarily of the same framework that you think you belong to, because we hope that you will be open-minded and be exposed to many minds and many ways of doing. That's part of the enrichment. So, but it doesn't mean that sometimes people don't request some supervisors that they had in some kind of, and some people even bought their supervisor, and the supervisor has become a faculty. So boutique program with a great effort to match you well. And if it doesn't work, we work with it.
Great. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Dr. Zenger, you're up next. I don't know if you're within earshot. If not, we'll come back to you. Okay. Irina, I believe you were next.
Hi. Two questions. For the psychotherapy program, are all the meetings on Zoom, or is it a kind of hybrid situation? And the other question is, for the theory classes, are they taught as seminars? Are they taught as lecture? I just wondered what's the style of presenting the material.
Okay, I will relate to that and tell you a small story, not because I like to take the space, but the whole issue of teaching on Zoom and how it came. All classes are on Zoom. Of course, it started at the pandemic. Soon after the pandemic, there was a request to meet in person. People like all of us were tired of being only on Zoom, and we promised that we'll try and we fulfill it, and we indeed had a year in which we taught in hybrid. So those that were in Chicago and were able to we met in the library with the technology of the library, and those that were out of town were on the screen. As I mentioned, it's a boutique program. We really pay attention, and the teaching hybrid, as some of you may know, has been very difficult for the teachers to engage both crowds, that is on the screen and in person. And more so for me, I did not like the fact that it kind of created two groups, one the in group and the outside group. So we moved to teach only on Zoom, to create a cohort that is more cohesive and others than some in person and so on. We were lucky enough that throughout the years we had a small clinical seminar that met in person, and sometimes we are able to do it and so on. But overall, it's all on Zoom. The other reason that it's all on Zoom is that we have many people that are not from the Chicago area. We have people from all over the United States. What was the second question? All of a sudden, I lost it.
Sure. The second question was the style of teaching the theory classes. Was it seminar? Was it lecture?
It's a seminar, but, that depends on the size of the cohort, but the whole cohort meets for the theory class on Zoom. So, and it most likely will not be more than one screen. This is one of the things that I pay attention in terms of number of applications, that I want basically that the class will be taught on one screen, not on multiple screens, like what happened in the lecture series, to create some kind of intimacy and so on. The small seminar, so then this is the full cohort, and then right now we have 5 or 6 clinical seminars that include around 7 people, more or less, per seminar. And this clinical seminar group cohort meets throughout the year with one leader. And then the following year, there is mix and match, and there is a new leader. So you are exposed to someone, different ways of teaching and being and so on. But so small groups that is throughout the year, and then the cohort meets for theory on the screen.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. Dr. Zinger, please jump in.
Hi, sorry, my Zoom is set for my work setting. So I work as a psychiatrist, and I did in Philadelphia during residency, I did the PCOP, the Philadelphia Fellowship Program at the PCOP, or whatever, Philadelphia Center for Psychoanalysis. And I wanted to do analytic training, and then just sort of life got busy, and I didn't kind of figure out time to do it. But I'd like, before I become too old or too tired, I'd like to try to get, analytically trained. I know it's going to be a number of years. I don't know if this is the right forum to ask about if I would be allowed, or how that would work, or if that's part of what you're doing an open house for.
We are always open for the analytic training program. If you want, let's you and I talk, and I could explain in detail about the program.
Thank you.
I'll put my email in the chat. Okay, Yelena, I believe you're next.
Yep, thanks. I'm curious, actually, I guess along similar lines. I'm wondering about the difference between the 2-year program and the certificate, either in sort of the aims of those two programs, or the expected kind of experience or prerequisites? Sort of, I'm trying to figure out kind of where I slot in. I don't know if someone could speak to that.
Elena, were you talking about the differentiation between the fellowship and the psychoanalytic psychotherapy certificate program, or you are
No, not the fellowship.
training to become
Yeah.
a psychoanalyst?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The 2-year program versus the certificate in psychoanalysis.
So, I would say that most of the candidate, maybe not all of the candidate, but at least a high percentage of our current candidate in the psychoanalytic training are graduate of the often for fellowship and then psychotherapy. It's not a requirement to be part of the psychotherapy program, but many of our candidates are a graduate of this program. We do not know enough about you, but for the psychoanalytic training program, the process is different. People need to have certain requirements before they can apply to it. For example, people need to be for certain, at least I think 5 years of, they need to be or in analysis or in psychoanalytic psychotherapy program for 5 years. They need to be experienced, to have professional experience postgraduate of 5 years minimum. For example, Lindsey is waiting 1 more year before she will apply to the candidate program and go through this program, through the application process, and maybe will be accepted. We'll see. So that's the best that at least I can do. Maybe Zach and Inbar can do more. Both Zach and Inbar are people that went through fellowship, ongoing fellowship, a psychotherapy program, candidate program, and now officers of the board and so on. But again, if you want more data about your suitability to apply now to the psychoanalytic training, I suggest that you'll connect with Zach, who is our president. He may have failed to mention it, but he is, and as such, he's also in charge of the psychoanalytic training program at this point. So whoever is interested in that, I think individual conversation with Zach will be very helpful. And again, if any of you have more questions, of course, you all are welcome to about the psychotherapy program. You all are welcome to meet with me, others, and so this open house. But I hope it's organized a little bit, the blueprint.
Elena, I just want to make sure I'm not confused, which could be very possible. Were you asking about the requirements for the 2-year program?
I was trying to understand what kind of level of experience one is expected to have to do the 2-year program versus the analytic training. And, perhaps there's a difference in purpose of what you're getting or what you're doing there. So I think that's sort of the nature of the question.
Okay, the Psychoanalytic Psychotherapy Program, the 2-year program, is much more structured, and like Adina was saying, it's sort of the gateway into the psychoanalytic training program. So I off the top of my head, I cannot think of what the hard requirements are for the 2-year program.
They aren't. Which means we actually are open to people that are interested in deepening their clinical work or academic work. We have what is called the academic track to invite people. We have people that are professor of film and literature and so on, that people that are interested. That's in the psychotherapy program. It's actually true also for the candidate, but no requirement are for the psychoanalytic psychotherapy program. People that are interested in learning more are welcome to come in. So if people are in the field or not in the field, whether they are basically, if you have a basic interest and so on, I do want to mention, for example, this year, we had a student that took a leave in the middle. He is actually an anthropologist from very many and wished to become a counselor, but hasn't been. He joined the academic track only to find out that it would be better for him to have some kind of knowledge in basics of terms before he joined the psychoanalytic program. But there are no requirements, there are conversation, and I promise that if you schedule a meeting with me, we will figure out together what program will serve you best at this point of your career. And I'm very familiar. I've been with the candidate program, of course, and I'm a graduate myself and board member. And I'll be very happy to help you sort out where you fit at this point of your development. Often it's very helpful for people to come through the psychotherapy program to refresh their knowledge, to read again material, even if they read it before, to be involved in individual consultation, weekly individual consultation, which is a treasure, to be in small group and discussing clinical material. And as they come into the psychoanalytic training program, should they apply and be accepted, it's like oily machine. They are in better better shape, and more part of the organization, but it's not a must. It's not a precondition.
Okay, thank you. Catherine, you've been very patient. Jump in.
Thank you so much. I actually have two questions. One I think should be pretty quick, but I'm curious when the start date is for the Psychoanalytic Psychotherapy Program. And then my second question is, I think, a little bit more directed to Lindsey. Thank you so much for your presentation, and I really enjoyed hearing what you had to say. And I'm kind of curious about your felt experience of the program in the sense of, I really resonated with what you were saying in terms of maybe it feeling expansive and perhaps having the ability to kind of spread out and seek different ideas from different people versus feeling more dependent on just the workplace. And I'm thinking about how helpful that is, like long term for the work. And so I'm curious at the end of your program how you're thinking about the systems of support that still exist for you, or how you continue expanding either within CCP itself or kind of taking some of the structure that you learned from the program, and how you're thinking about it long term in your career. Sorry, that was kind of a long question, but so yeah, those two questions.
Lindsey?
Well, the interesting part is I opened up my practice in the last year, and part of what I did was continue with my relationships with Laurel and Peter to have these individual consultations weekly or bi-weekly. And so in some ways, until Adina lets me join the analytic program, I'm building a bridge for myself while being in such a solo and sometimes isolating field and being in private practice. What I've done is taken some of these structures and continued them because that's how critical it feels, and how important for me to feel not alone in doing this. And along with that, a lot of my friendships and relationships and peer groups that we've started together have also been a part of that. And so what I think the felt experience has been is now I'm able to design this structure around me that is my own creation and is not a formal program, but create a structure in these relationships to hold me and make the process of being on my own in my own workplace less daunting to do. So that's some of what it's given me, if that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I find that answer quite encouraging. So thank you.
And
Terms of
you also had a concrete question. Did we
Oh,
answer
yeah,
that?
just when does the program like officially start in the fall?
in October, the psychotherapy program lecture series of CCP, which we hope that you all join us, regardless if you are joining this program or not. Just join us as members, join our community and join our lecture series in person or on Zoom. So they sometimes start in September, but overall the academic year starts in October. Once the cohort the incoming cohort in the psychotherapy program is established, we have a gathering on Zoom towards the end of September with faculty and the incoming cohort to welcome all. So this will be at the end of September. The cohort will get letters and so on and so forth. But the classes themselves, the classes and seminars start in October.
All right. Chris, you were up next.
Oh, I thought JT was first.
Oh,
But
I'm sorry, you're wrong.
I could go. I'm curious for the 2-year program, the Psychoanalytic Psychotherapy Program for the readings. What are the makeup of the readings? How much of the original text are we going to be reading? What are the percentage of like original text versus secondary text, and how close are we reading them? How in depth are we going to take them up in the seminar that we're going to be a part of is like my first question. And my second question is for like the clinical groups, I'm wondering how they are selected within the group. Is there consideration of like theoretical well-versedness in psychoanalysis or like clinical experience prior to joining the program? And if there are differences within each like small groups, how are the students oriented into making use of the group?
About the readings, we are lucky enough that Alan Levy is here with us and he has his hand up for some question or remark. But Alan has been our faculty and has taught the first 2 seminars for many years with great generosity, although he's not the current faculty, but he probably can give a good answer to you, Chris, and others about what was his approach when he was teaching it for many years about the reading. So in 1 minute, I will just let Alan respond. Is it okay, Alan, that you will kind of take about the readings? Great. In terms of the clinical seminar, the way I assign people to clinical seminar, we have Laurel here and Diane here and some others that lead these groups. And I assign, I think we spoke a little bit about it when we met, and I take in account a level of experience and some hunch, basically about and so on. I do not create the groups based on incoming student current theoretical approach. One of the things that we are trying to invite ourselves, the elders, but definitely the people who are, is to remind you that you are here to be open-minded and kind of encourage you maybe to know less about who you are at this point and be curious about what will develop. So no, it's not based on your current declared theoretical interest. It is, but the level of experience is being taken in account, not fully. I will tell you a little story that one of our current candidate, but he was a student in the psychotherapy, is a professor of film and literature. and was very concerned. He said about the clinical seminar, the small clinical seminar, when he said, but I don't have patients. I said, but you have your dreams and fantasies about material presented. I'm telling this little story just to remind everyone that the clinical seminar is not to sort up and know who the patient, at least my attitude is, not to know who's the patient is and so on. It's more to help you become better listener and listen to the music that is presented and associate to stuff. Depends on the leader and how they lead it, but overall it's to be open to what is not familiar. That's always true in therapy, in seminars, and so on. So Chris, and when it will be frustrating because maybe stuff won't be just right, you'll have your group leader to discuss it with, and you will have me to discuss, to struggle whether sometimes it won't work exactly the way that you want it to be. But struggling with good stuff and frustration is part of our field, isn't it? Alan, could you please respond to at least in your many years of teaching these classes and how you related to reading material?
Yeah, I'll answer that, and I want to go back to Yelena's question too. The question, I think, relates to whether one teaches up or teaches down. Mainly, we read original source material. We don't expect people who read it to know everything inside and out, rather to come with questions. It's not a seminar whereby, at least how I taught it, whereby each member is assigned to a particular reading and to present it. Everybody reads the same reading and then we discuss it in class. Usually, a summary that I give or the instructor gives, and then discussion with questions. In addition to that, we tend to be very accessible to the psychotherapy students. So in between the theory classes, people are free. I give my actually cell phone number, but are free to email or call with questions, because we want to make sure that you have a sense of the literature. But we don't teach down. We want to raise people up. So I think that may be responding to your question. Circling back to Yelena's question, I think there was a question that you raised, Yelena, about the psychoanalytic training program, which I think you referred to as the certificate program. That's the training program to become a psychoanalyst. There was one question about it already, but just very briefly, it takes about 5 years, more or less, 4 to 6 years. There's a lot of flexibility, but it entails 3 basic components. One is, of course, classes, and I think besides a few required classes, there are 30 elective classes that one takes over that time. In addition to that, there's very close supervision on training cases where you meet with an analytic training case client 3-4 times a week. You have one supervisor focusing on your work with that one client. You have 2 or 3 of those, depending on the number of hours. And then the third part is your own personal analysis. You need to be in psychoanalysis yourself as you train. So that's the 3-legged stool that comprises psychoanalytic training to become an analyst. Hopefully that answers both questions. But a lot of the faculty, elders or whatever, are here because of our investment in you. And that's a commitment we make. Thank you.
Thank you. JT, please jump in.
Thank you so much. First of all, this has been extremely helpful, but I think piggybacking off of Catherine's answer, and maybe this was partially answered by Adina earlier, but I was wondering for the fellowship program, if there was a specific start date in the fall for that. And I think following along with Lindsey's progression in the program or the fellowship up, sounds very interesting. I'm wondering if, for those of us who are just starting out and thinking about this, I'm looking over the application material, and is there anything specific that you are looking for in terms of the brief statement to sign up for the program, the fellowship?
No, it's really why do you want to do this? In the brief statement, a little bit about your history, but really just that you're going to come in like anyone, like we want anyone to come in and take this very seriously, and just be open to learning it. So yeah, no, we are not real strict about about application essays.
And in terms of the dates, JT, it's what Adina said. It's hard for me to tell you an exact date for the fellowship because you'll be in a group and it will depend on when this group leader and the group members decide on their meetings. It varies between the groups. Same about when you and your individual mentor will decide to start the meeting. What I can tell you, I mean, I can't because I don't remember, but maybe Zach, I can tell you when is the first lecture, the first Friday night of the beginning of the year, and that will be the first time you'll be joining us in a lecture. So I don't know, somebody remembers when is our first lecture?
Early September, I believe.
Oh, so the beginning is early September.
That's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do, JT, like in the psychoanalytic, in each of our program, whether it's the candidate, the fellowship, and so on, the personal statement, there are no requirement, but I think that it probably helps in Bar or myself to hear your voice a little bit, but so as I said, it can promote some kind of sense of who we would like to meet you and so on. But it's not needed. Don't get scared about writing the right personal. Just a little bit of your voice about your interest and why you're interested, not to justify, just a little bit so we can hear you, find you in the text a little bit.
All right. Alan Sholem, turn on your mic. Alan, turn on your mic.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. My name's Alan Sholem. I've been around for quite a while at CCP, and I wanted to just comment on so many of you being here. I'm so glad that there's been such a wonderful turnout, and that all the questions that you're raising are really wonderful questions. And I wanted to emphasize also something that Zach touched on a little bit, that we're here really to provide a community for all of you, and a community that hopefully will engender your personal growth toward not just being better therapists or analysts, but being better people. And which is really what it's all about, which is so much important in these days where our own personal subjectivities, the assault on depth therapies of all kinds in the culture has been profound. And one of the things that we try to do very much at the heart of what we do is to do exactly what we're having now, which is a conversation and a dialogue about where you're all at, and the hopes that we're going to come together and provide a kind of lifelong learning experience and a community to do that and support that, which these days, with we might call the assault on thought or the assault on subjectivity that exists in the culture, psychoanalysis becomes the preservation of psychoanalysis, and the expansion of it becomes that much more important. There aren't a whole lot of places you can go where what you think and feel at the deepest levels is going to be respected and valued and developed. And I think one of the things that makes CCP unique and so important is that we try to provide a space for everybody. we don't do lockstep things or impose things, that we try to hear where you're at and to help you develop into being the best people and therapists you can be, and have a community to do that, because there aren't so many these days. And it's so very important to have that kind of support and that kind of group to be a part of, that is so much needed more and more, ever more and more these days in our rather difficult times, to say the least. I want to extend that perspective to you, and thank you all for being here, and to participate and open with your questions. And hopefully we'll get to see you very soon.
Thank you, Alan. Joseph, you're up next. Please jump in.
Thank you. And I really appreciate Dr. Sholom's comments. Those are very encouraging comments. I was curious. I have a very mundane kind of question about how big a class of fellows are you looking to create? With a census here of, at one point, 51 people signed into this session, I was thinking, wow, this is a lot of people. And I know some of them are looking at other programs, but I'm just trying to get a sense of like how big a program are you looking to create this year?
Joseph, are you talking about the fellowship specifically or the 2-year?
Yes, the fellowship specifically.
To be honest with you, my answer will be that I'm not sure. I don't want to. We're open at this point. The application, time is open until mid-July, but I'm not, depending on if people will still be interested, maybe applying a little bit later in the summer. We might still be open for that. Last year, I think so we have the fellowship, there is new fellows and there is a second year and ongoing. You can be a fellow for a second year. So it's really, everybody that's here, I think, from, a lot of the people that I've interviewed our year are interviewing for the first year. We also have ongoing fellows. I would say maybe 50, 60, but I'm not sure. I don't know if that helps. The people that you will see, right? Because we're hybrid, because with the fellowship, I'm hoping that I'll have the ability to have in-person groups and virtual groups, because we have enough fellows that are local in Chicago and are interested in in-person groups. So depending on where you are, you might see some of these folks more. And there will be one gathering, hopefully in the beginning of the year and maybe at the end of the year, where all of us will be together, both Zoom and in person. So I don't know if that gives you if that's the answer you're looking for, but that's the best that I can do at this point. I'll know more in the end of August.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. I'm glad you didn't say like 5, right? I think I was worried about it being hyper competitive. I just didn't know like what size, and I don't want to come out of here feeling hyper competitive. I want to come out of here saying I'm inspired to apply. And
so I'll reiterate really what all of the elders have said and Lindsey have said and Zach have said, that we really are interested. Anybody who's interested and serious about learning about psychoanalysis, psychoanalytic therapy, about the work, and is interested in this community is welcome. So I hope that message was clear.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, we've got a few minutes.
If we have a few minutes and there are no more questions, I was wondering, Diane, I want to just go around for the few people that are here, that are still with us here. I can see them. Carol, can you just introduce you? So I'll just want you to have, you met Alan Levy, you met Alan Sholom, Zach, Inbar, myself, but there are some people that, as I said, generously are our faculty and Seriously can. Carol, can you tell the group a little bit about your journey with CCP and
Oh, yes, I certainly can. I really didn't get as involved in the training. I mean, I was a member, I came to the lectures, but really started my journey in the analytic training program, which I started in 2009, I believe. And I was in it for 6 years till I graduated. I think it was the most important piece of learning in my life. Um, we have the very best instructors from all over the world. I had wonderful supervisors. I have a long list of supervisors over the course of my life. And then when I graduated, I was invited to be on the board, and then I became president for a 4-year term. And I'm still on the board. I participate in both um, the psychotherapy program and the fellowship. In the fellowship, I'm a mentor, but I usually like to see people every other week, not just once a month. So that's the difference that I have. And I guess it's a consultant. I think of myself as a supervisor, but I'm a consultant in the psychotherapy program. So that's my connection.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. Diane Selinger is right here with us, and Diane is one of the clinical seminar leaders and has been for a few years now. Diane, maybe you can tell a little bit about who you are, but your experiences in the groups, in the clinical seminars that you are leading.
Yeah, I'm a psychologist in the Chicago area and an analyst, and I've been involved with CCP leading groups over the last number of years in different capacities, leading different groups. And right now I'm leading the group in the psychotherapy program. And I must say, I've enjoyed every group that I've led there. It's a warm group. People come together and it feels very safe for people from different backgrounds, different levels of experience. The classes that they're in, they're integrated. They integrate the material. And I'm surprised how much a community that they feel with each other that comes across within this group. Because they see each other classes and groups. Sometimes, there's they consult and connect with each other, but it's a very warm, inviting experience. And I always learn, and the cases that are presented are always interesting. And I find it to be a learning experience and a deepening experience for all those who are involved. So everything that's said today is really comes alive. And for me, everything that you've said has come alive in the groups. So I hope that's helpful. And thank you, Lindsey. It was so nice to hear your presentation.
Well, any last questions? Any last words? Any further introductions we need to make? All right, Benjamin, jump in.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am very encouraged by the overall warm and welcoming tenor of this presentation. I just want to thank all of you very much for coming in and presenting all of this. Admittedly, as a student at the Chicago School, you don't necessarily really get a sense of things until you're further along in the journey. And I'm starting to get to that point now. And I've kind of viewed psychoanalysis as almost this sort of pedestal kind of theoretical orientation. And so it really is wonderful to hear about the community aspect of what CCP does. I think that's very, very important for me to feel like I'm not some kind of, lone ship out in a large ocean, so to speak. It really is really encouraging to hear about the support that you offer and the mentorship opportunities. So I just wanted to thank you all for your graciousness in offering that to applicants and to people who you work with. It's very valued. Thank you.
Thanks, Benjamin. And you're just reminding me of the sense of community. That was really important to me. I mean, I'd gone through all the programs, and by the time I was just finishing the candidate program, everyone would go out to dinner on Saturday night after the class. And I was just sitting we were all at a big round table in some restaurant. And I was just sort of sitting back listening to everyone talking. And it just sort of hit me, God, what a bunch of weirdos. Everyone here was really weird, but everyone was really okay with it, which was great. So it was, we welcome everyone to come and be weird and, become yourselves. So thank you.
Amen.
Yeah. Thank you all for being interested and curious. Such an important quality in our field. So
yeah, please apply, think about applying. If you have further questions, reach out either to the website or Adina or Inbar or myself. And we hope to see you in the fall.
And just become a member. If you don't apply, you do apply, just come and be part of us. You don't need to be part of a program in order to be part of us. We have a home now. We gather in person. We gather on screen. Just become a member and be part of us.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Lindsey. You graduated.
Thank you. Thank you, Lindsey.
Bye.